My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Boys Season 3, and this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. Now, at the time of recording this review, everybody is on cloud 9 about this season. I've heard people call it a masterpiece, one of the best seasons of television ever, and all I have to say is, what season of television did they watch? Because we did not watch the same season. Like, this season is atrocious. It's not just bad, it's not just terrible, it's atrocious. I really hated it. Like, I haven't seen Game of Thrones Season 8 yet, but based on everything I've heard about it, this is the Game of Thrones Season 8 of The Boys. Like, I loved the first season. I think it introduces this world and these characters incredibly well. The second season is a huge decrease in quality. It treats the characters more like jokes than anything else. And then we get another big decrease in quality here. And it's easily the worst season of the bunch, to the point where I'm just done with it. I'm not going to keep watching it. Last night, I watched my last new episode of The Boys ever. I'm done. I'm checking out. Like, the first 3 episodes of this season, I was a bit mixed on. There was some really great stuff, but there was also some really awful stuff. But then we get to episode 4, which might just be the best episode of the entire series. It was amazing, and I was totally in, only for episode 5 to come out, having it be the worst episode of the entire series. And then we get to Herogasm, and people were really hyping up this episode. They were like, it's insane, it's crazy, you've seen nothing like it, you won't be the same afterwards. And really? Like, that's it? Okay. I didn't like that episode at all, which I'll definitely get to in a bit. Episode 7 was awful. Episode 8 is even worse. So this was just not a good episode, and the more I think about it and the more I look back, the more I hate this season. Let's begin talking about the characters, first with Hughie. Hughie's a character I've always liked. He is the humanity of the show, and I love the direction they wanted to take him, about how that humanity can be corrupted. And what if he was powerless to save Starlight, like he was powerless to save Robin? That is a fantastic idea, and I really wish they leaned into it. Like, have him have dreams of Robin's death time and time again, and you take the current circumstances of what's happening to Starlight, and you could understand his motivations a lot more. But this show doesn't do this. What it does instead is look down on him every opportunity they get and treat him like he's the worst person on the planet. And they just write him in such a way that's not consistent with who he is. Especially the way he acts in Herogasm, that's not Hughie. When he's talking about how he always felt insecure about Starlight, it is completely out of character. Him being the jealous boyfriend in the first few episodes, it's out of character. Hughie was never that person, so they wanted to change his character so they could make some kind of commentary on toxic masculinity. And they used that to drive the character forward instead of the other way around, which it should be. So just the fact that they treat him like the worst person this entire season really got under my skin. Like, I really hated it. And they spent so many episodes separating him and Starlight while they're no longer on the same side. And then in the last episode, he just gets left at a gas station and he calls her and he apologizes for being a toxic male, and that's it. You spend all that time and it's just better like that. And then the same finale episode, there's a moment where he could take the Compound V and he could save Starlight, but instead he decides to help her out so she can save the day. And it's supposed to be a huge character moment, but how did he go from point A to B? How? Like, what happened to him throughout this season that made him change? Nothing. It's just change for the sake of it, so they can give him some sort of an arc, but completely make-believe. And I love the idea of him taking the Compound V, but they don't lean into it enough. Like, if it shows what drastic measures he's willing to take to protect Starlight, but it actually starts to corrupt him and he becomes a worse and worse person and the drugs affecting him in different ways, that would be really great, but they don't do that. Like, they say if you take the drug 5 times, you die, and Butcher is going to die apparently, but Hughie, who took the drug 4 times, is apparently perfectly fine. Really? And I just mentioned the scene where instead of saving Starlight, he turns on the lights so she can save the day or whatever. And if those lights weren't there, was I supposed to root for him to just let her die? Like, there's nothing toxic about wanting to protect someone. That's an admirable trait, and the show looks down on it. He's a man and she's powerful than him. Just accept it and don't try to do anything. Like, let's make something clear. Homelander went to Starlight and said that if she steps out of line, he'll kill Hughie and her. And he's supposed to just be okay with it and do nothing? Like, give me a fucking break! Absolutely not. And the main showrunner, Eric Kripke or whatever his name is, put out a Twitter post that said, Hughie's craving was selfish, to make himself feel macho and save a woman who doesn't want saving. Chemical is a selfless sacrifice that's a burden to her, to protect a man who welcomes the protection. Big difference. That's what he says. And based on what that guy said about how Hughie is trying to save a woman who doesn't want saving, Starlight reaches out to him in episode 7, and he doesn't want to be saving, but she insists on saving him. So when she does it, it's good. When Hughie does it, it's bad. When Chemical does it, it's good. When Hughie does it, it's bad. That is when the agenda, the narrative, is driving the story, and it drove me nuts. And I love the one moment where Hughie does stand up to Homelander, but Homelander could have killed him right there. So you understand where this character is coming from, but the show looks down on him throughout the entire season. So I hated the way they treated him. And then we got William Butcher, who was ruined as well. Like, one thing I loved about him in season 1 was his backstory. He was a normal, everyday kind of guy. He was in love, he was married, he was happy, but after his wife is presumed dead, that desperation and that heartbreak corrupted him. And that's just a great character. It really is. But now they go back and retcon it, and it's just like, oh, the reason why he's corrupted is because he was abused by his dad. And I get what it's trying to comment about toxic masculinity and generational trauma. I get all that, but you've made this character infinitely less interesting. And the flashbacks to his violent acts was just very cringeworthy, and I just feel like they ruined the backstory of this character. And then the way they treat him in this season, they just refuse to let this guy evolve, to let him grow. Like at the end of season 2, despite me not liking that season, I was just like, okay, so now he's going to be looking after Becca's kid, and let's see how that changes him. But the show just takes that storyline and throws it all away, and the character just becomes stagnant once again. So the show refuses to let anyone grow. And the way he is with that kid makes him way too unlikable. Like, Karl Urban is great, but this character is just boring me. And I hate the fact that episode 7 ends with him purposely getting Hughie poisoned, only for episode 8 to immediately backtrack that. I hate that. It's very lazy writing. And then we've got the character of Ryan, who's a terribly written character. Like, at the end of season 2, he sees how evil and awful Homelander is and how much his mom hated him. And then Homelander sees him for like 5 seconds and he's just like, I understand you. And the son's just like, oh, well, I guess I love you now, Dad. I'll join you no matter what. I just hated that. And then how he was there in the last fight was just so contrived and so stupid. It really frustrated me. And the worst part is that we don't see him between episodes 3 and 8. He's completely forgotten about, so any change in his character just feels jarring and he feels like an afterthought more than anything else. Like episode 8, like, hey guys, whatever happened to the kid? Oh shit, I knew we were forgetting someone. And then we've got Homelander, who might just be the most frustrating character this season because he has some of his best moments in this season. He is completely unhinged and he's taking on this mindset that if he can't be loved, then he's okay being feared. And I just love how he's not putting up with any more nonsense. That speech he gives at the end of episode 2 was really great. I love his talk with Starlight. I thought that was great. And I love how they actually use his super hearing a lot this season. Like, Adrian will walk away, whisper to himself, fuck you, and then he'll rush over and be like, what did you say? I love that stuff. And he keeps making threats that he doesn't follow up on. He says he'll attack Starlight, but he doesn't. He says he'll destroy the planet if she does anything, and he doesn't. And there's a great moment at the end of episode 6, where he realizes that he can be beaten, that he is mortal. And that would have been great to play off of, but they really don't. But the character is really ruined by the fact that they portray him like Donald Trump. I hate everything that they were going for in this approach. Because once you do that, it takes me out of it. I no longer see Homelander. I now see the writer's perception of Trump. And it's so false, and it's so in your face and heavy-handed, and it doesn't work for me. And then you've got the character of Todd, who I just found to be terrible. His dialogue about Homelander is so on the nose, and that scene where he gets punched is so overly dramatic, I couldn't take it seriously. Then you've got A-Train, who I thought his arc was really awful. I hate it when you take a character who has never mentioned his family before and then make their family a crucial part of their character now. It just feels very lazy, and his redemption just isn't earned. He gets someone killed early on, and they want me to feel bad for him. And the whole Black Lives Matter approach to this character is just atrocious. Having that one guy punch black people while screaming "All Lives Matter" is such a bogus, disingenuous way of showing the other viewpoint that at this point you're nothing more than propaganda. And then they decide to give A-Train Blue Hawk's heart. Why? Like, that was really stupid, and by the end he just added nothing. He adds nothing to this season. And then you've got Starlight, who's just portrayed as this perfect person, and I just found her insufferable. Like, there's one fight that her and Huey get in early on where he's just like, you should quit. You shouldn't move up because it could put you in more danger. And the show takes Starlight's side, and when she realizes she was wrong, there's no backtracking. There's no, oh, I apologize, you were right. They still treat her like a perfect person. And anytime her eyes glow up, it is so embarrassing. She is like the least powerful superhero there is. And it's just, like, she'll be like, don't you do anything. And her eyes will light up and they show not an ounce of fear. And I couldn't really blame them. Like, at the end, she releases this big, powerful attack on Soldier Boy, and it really doesn't do anything at all. Then you've got Mother's Milk, who is just the biggest idiot ever this season. Like, there's no hint of his past with Soldier Boy, so everything regarding that just feels so artificial. And that one line where he's like, Soldier Boy killed my family, it was delivered in a very laughably bad way, and it reminded me of Trolls, where Justin Timberlake is like, music killed my grandma. I got reminded of that. But he wants to kill Soldier Boy with a gun. And I can't take it seriously. He wouldn't be able to do an ounce of damage, and I'm supposed to be on board with this? Like, there's one scene during Herogasm where the big fight's going on, and Mother's Milk is about to attack Soldier Boy with his gun, and Starlight's like, no, they need you. And it's laughably bad. Like, am I supposed to believe he would do an ounce of damage? And I've seen some people be like, well, he's suicidal, but the show doesn't lean into that at all. It treats it like a revenge quest. And not just that, it really takes me off because this season looks down on Butcher for his revenge quest against Homelander, but it looks up to MM's revenge quest against Soldier Boy. Why? Like, honestly, why? I'll tell you why. It's because this show hates white men. Yes, I know that's going to get clipped and people are going to be like, oh, he's one of those people, but it's true. This show hates white men. This season is about how awful masculinity is. It's about how awful white people is. And if you don't see that here, then I don't know what to tell you because it's as in your face as it gets. MM's revenge quest is good. Butcher's is bad, and it has everything to do with the color of their skin. I don't agree with that. I think it's perfectly fine in both cases, but that's the way the show views it. And then his daughter being like, you're my hero, daddy, wasn't earned at all. But then we've also got Soldier Boy, who wasn't mentioned in any other season, I don't believe. I could be wrong. But he gets mentioned out of the blue here. He gets built up for so many episodes, and, like, he's fine. He's just kind of forgettable, and he really has no effect on the plot. Like, first, I want to say that they make him out to be the bad guy in the most laziest of manners. There's no complexity behind him. They just try to paint him as this over-the-top, racist, evil, awful person. And I just had zero investment in his quest to hunt down his old team. It was just completely unneeded. It was filler and nothing more. And then we find out that he's Homelander's father, and it just felt like a twist, desperate to keep this show going. And it at least could have been used in a useful way. Well, you think that he might actually change his mind and it would be Soldier Boy and Homelander against everyone else. But everything plays out like it would have, and it actually adds absolutely nothing to the story, to the characters, or to anything moving forward. And it really bothered me in the last episode because they view him as the worst of the two evils. That he's even worse than Homelander. But he's following suit on his word. He's doing everything he said he would do. But the show keeps viewing him as nothing more than pure evil. And I think that's a very disingenuous way of looking at him. He's clearly a bad person. But the show just wants to beat you over the head with, you're supposed to hate him. And then he dies, but surprise, he's still alive and he's frozen again, so we're back at where we were at the start of this season. Then we've got The Deep, which, okay, I'll say this. He adds nothing to this season. He has no effect on the story or characters, but I'd be lying if I said he didn't crack me up here. Like, I don't know. The fact that they actually did the whole him having sex with an octopus thing it cracked me up. And that scene where he's forced to eat Timothy is a very uncomfortable scene. So, even though he has no effect, he still made me laugh, so I'm not as negative on him. Then you've got Marv, who I've never really cared for as a character. She doesn't add much, she's very bland. And there's this whole point where she confronts Homelander and they try to build a mystery of what happened to her. Where is she? And then it just turns out she's captured. And that's it. Like, duh, I could have told you that. Like, where else would she be? And why does Vought have a room to capture their own superheroes? Like, if I walked there and I knew there was a room to keep me captive, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to work here. Like, if I got a job and they're like showing me around the place and they're like, oh, by the way, we have a jail cell here in case you misbehave. I'd be like, you know what? I think I'll get another job. And anyways, I hate the fact that she didn't actually die. And now she's just written out of the show, I guess. I don't know. I don't really care. Then you've got Black Noir, which, oh my goodness. The list keeps going on. He has a bit more to do, but he's still an incredibly boring character. Like, he should be this show's Snake Eyes. He should be the standout, but he just kind of exists. Like, they do attempt to flesh him out with these cartoon characters, and it's just stupid. You know, I love it when shows do something very different and artistic, but between this and the musical number in episode 5, it just feels very forced, and it doesn't feel like the same show. It just feels like them being like, look how quirky and different we are, and I could just see right through it. His backstory had zero impact, and the way he dies is the most unsatisfying death I think I've ever seen. Like, all that build-up for nothing? Like, literally nothing? And I've heard people say that, oh no, he's coming back next season. Well, if he does, that's stupid. And if he doesn't, then this is stupid. So it's a lose-lose. And then you've got Frenchie and Kimiko, who once again, I just don't care about. They have nothing to do. If they weren't in this season, nothing would change. There's this whole plot of Kimiko losing her powers, but then she just gets them back immediately, so it just feels like a waste of time. And I've seen people be like, well, it's because she realizes that the powers didn't make her a monster. She's just naturally a monster, and I don't buy into that. You could have done a lot more there, and by the end, I felt like she was the exact same character because there's no attention given to her. Then you've got this new character named Supersonic, who I didn't think really added much. And then you've got Victoria Newman, who is the person who can blow up heads. And she's set up at the end of season 2 like she'll be a major character here. And she's in the first episode a lot, but then she just kind of disappears for the rest of it. And then at the end it's like, oh, she's vice president, so you're going to have to deal with her in the future. But that's the same note you ended on at the end of season 2, so, oh, whatever. And then Ashley whipping her hair out of her head, being the big character arc that she's on this season, is just a what decision? But let's address the elephant in the room and talk about the politics of this show. It's always been present, but I didn't care in season 1. Season 2 annoyed me a little bit more, but this season it's just so in your face and it really got on my nerves. They paint Antifa, a real-life terrorist organization, as good people. And they also mention Lindsey Graham by name, which I really hated. Like, I don't know too much about him, but just keep real-life names out of it. Make up names. Make up the politics. Make up this world. Don't try to remind you of the real world so desperately, because then it takes me out of it. This show is also very pro-media. Like, anytime Homelander speaks out against the media, it's supposed to be like, oh, look how crazy this guy is, saying that you can't trust the media. Of course you can. So I hated that. This show, in its last scene, is comparing Soulja Boy to the founders of America, because those statues are being torn down in real life and people are upset about it, and Soulja Boy's statue gets torn down here and people are upset about it. And I just think it's a purposely ignorant decision. You know, tearing down statues and trying to revise history is wrong, and trying to pretend that if I existed back then, I would be a great person and I would always do the right thing is such a bullshit attitude that I really hate. And then when Homelander goes to the Trump rally, the Homelander rally, I don't know why I said that, there's a guy with a buffalo hat, which it's just very obvious and in your face. And then the same scene, they try to paint it like the conservatives, the right, celebrates violence. And it's so disingenuous and just really evil of the showrunners. That's the way they view the other side. And they really left a bad taste in my mouth. And I've seen some people say this show is punching down on both sides. It's not. It's one-sided, and it just has this attitude that the writers are correct and they're the best people and the other side is evil, and that's it. It's that simple. And I've seen some critics, some who I even like, say that it's holding a mirror to today's society, and just no. It lacks any bit of depth and nuance in order to properly do that. They paint the other side as these over-the-top, exaggerated versions of how they view them in their head. And they put the message ahead of the story and characters. Instead of the characters driving the story forward as they should, the politics drive the story and the characters forward. You know, their politics and their ideas of toxic masculinity drive it forward instead of vice versa. You know, it's like I said, they view MM as good and Butcher as bad, even though they have the exact same crest. And it just also comes down to a fact that, just being honest, the left doesn't actually understand the right and what they believe in. They just paint them like cartoon villains, and they don't actually have a grasp on our worldview. They just don't get it. So all the political stuff really brings this season down, and let's talk about build-up and payoff, because this show does not deliver on that. There are two things that I feel like this show has been building up from the start. And the first one is Butcher going up against Homelander. And the second is the truth about Homelander and Vought getting out there in the public. So we get the fight at the end of Herogasm with Butcher and Homelander, and I just felt nothing. Like, they should have built to that fight the entire episode like they knew what was coming. But it just kind of happens out of coincidence. And then there's a scene where Butcher gets lasered and Homelander thinks he's dead, and then Butcher gets up and he's like, "Oi!" And I don't know, it just felt nothing. They just do the cliche shooting lasers at each other's lasers, and I just don't think the payoff was there. I know people are just like, this is the greatest fight ever, and I don't know, like, I'm not saying it's a bad fight, but it's definitely not above decent. And then Starlight telling the world the truth was such a nothing moment. Like, that should have been huge. And just nothing comes from it. Predictably, Vought denies it, and then they just treat her like she's crazy. So you got this huge moment with zero payoff. And like, how did she not see that coming? Like, she's smarter than that. And then later she gets Homelander on camera, and it's like, didn't we already do this? She reveals everything and just nothing yet again. And in the second last episode, she's in trouble with Vought and Homelander again. It's just, I feel like we've already been down this road. And then we've also got the last fight, which I'll touch on in a bit, but The entire last episode is just a disaster. The way they build up Black Noir only for him to end up doing nothing. The way that they build up this fight only for it to go in a different direction. Just hated all of that. The only bit of build up and payoff that I feel like was actually properly done was Hughie. Because every time he teleports, he ends up being naked. And the way they use that in Herogasm, where he pops up in an OG naked, it's actually the best use of it. So I guess there's that. And like I already mentioned, this season has a few forgotten plots. Like, you think that Hughie's boss, Victoria Newman, would be a big part of this season, but she's completely forgotten about. She completely disappears. And it's just bad writing. Same with Butcher's son. He gets completely forgotten about for the majority of this season. And then there's just a real lack of evolution. This season feels like filler and nothing more. Nothing significant happens. Chemical loses her powers, gets them back, and is fine. MM has a relationship with his daughter at the start, and at the end, he still has that relationship. Hughie and Starlight fight, they break up, but they're back together at the end, so nothing changed there. Newman is still in a powerful position. A-Train and the Deep are still in the exact same position. Homelander doesn't care anymore, so he's at the same spot as he was at the end of Season 2. And like I said, they've been building up to him snapping for so long, and I just don't care anymore. Soldier Boy is in hypersleep, he wakes up, and at the end of the season, he's back asleep in hypersleep. So, we're back where we were at the start with him. Maeve is with her girlfriend, but this time she has an eye patch. Butcher is still the same Butcher, but he only has a year to live. And just nothing evolves. The plot doesn't evolve, the characters don't change, just nothing matters. You know, I remember back in Season 1, well, you feel like any one of these characters could die at any point because they're so outmatched. And there's just no sense of that same tension here. There's no stakes. Because none of the main characters die. They have got the thickest form of plot armor possible. And like, we got the big fight with Homelander and Butcher, so are we just going to build to that time and time again? Or are we just going to keep introducing a new other villain each season? Like, what's the direction they're going to take? Like, you take a show like BoJack Horseman. When you get to Season 6, which is the best season, you manage to feel nostalgic for Season 2 and Season 3 BoJack, because of how things were with him and Todd and Diane and how everything felt simpler. But the show evolved. The characters progressed. And you just get none of that here. And then, like I said, I disagree with this show on all of its politics, but also the main moral question for a good chunk of this season, I could not be more off board with. Like, they're trying to get us to root against Butcher and Hughie killing Homelander, who, by the way, they hype up this season to be worse than ever before, and I'm supposed to be against it? Like, no, just let him die. I'm totally on Team Hughie and Butcher here. And the show wants me to think that Soldier Boy is worse, but there's no evidence of it. He's clearly not. And at least he follows through on his word. Not saying he's a good person, but he's nowhere near as evil as Homelander. Like, they have a chance to kill the most powerful and most evil person on the planet, and they don't take it. I just can't comprehend this stupidity, and I'm supposed to be on board with this. Like, everyone worked together and took down Soldier Boy, but they couldn't do the same thing to Homelander. So if Soldier Boy can defeat Homelander, wouldn't common sense be like, let Soldier Boy take down Homelander, then we take down Soldier Boy? And so much of this season is actually reliant on this main idea. It's not just in the last episode, they bring it up time and time again. So, everyone's a bunch of idiots, and this show is dumb for thinking I'd be on their side. And let's talk about some of the shock value here, because there's a scene early on in this season. You know what scene I'm talking about, and if you don't, then look it up. But I did not like this scene at all. It's just shock value. It's just trying to be like, look how gross and disgusting we are. And that's it. It served zero purpose, and I wasn't a fan of it. There's a certain line of gross and insanity that I'll go through, and that's past it. It just felt very immature to me. And then you've also got the entire Hero-gasm thing, which, like I said, isn't as bad as they built it up to be. It's just a bunch of random superhero orgy stuff. It's nothing, oh my goodness, that is so gross, or oh my goodness, that's so insane. It's really nothing that you haven't seen in this show already. But let's talk about some stuff I did like. Like, I did laugh a few times. The Deep made me laugh, like I already mentioned. I thought Vortland was really funny. I thought the Imagine spoof at the very beginning of Hero-gasm was hilarious. There was one scene in the very first episode, and this might be my favorite scene in this entire season. It's Butcher and Homelander just talking, and how Homelander's looking forward to killing Butcher. And, I just wish they built off that moment a lot better because I really loved it. And I do love the idea of the temporary Compound V to give Huey and Butcher a power upgrade. And there's one building that we see time and time again, and it's not a real life building, but it's the same building they use for the Daily Bugle and Spider-Man, and just every time I saw it, I'm just like, oh, that's the Daily Bugle. But let's also get to some more negatives. That's right, I'm not done yet. I think some of the CGI is really bad, like Termite shrinking in that one scene. I think Monique is a really bad mom. Like, she just allows her new husband and her kid to have all this fraud stuff, but she was in hiding because of them. Like, she's either the worst mom ever or she's a complete idiot. In episode 3, I think there is a 20-minute long flashback scene, and I just think it was so unneeded. In the beginning and end of episode 3, where we see Starlight at a beauty contest when she was a kid, and she's pretending to be happy, but she's squeezing her fist behind her back, and then it gets mirrored at the end of the episode, was just not subtle at all. There is some moments that have some very bad ADR. Like I said, the dance scene and the animation stuff just felt like this show is trying too hard to be quirky. The fact that everyone can just sneak into Vought at any point is just baffling. Like, Annie gets fired and she goes in the next day like nothing happened. Really? I am glad that the show didn't keep doing the blackmailing stuff, but it does get brought up a few more times here, and it's got people recording each other, which I don't think is good drama. And the final episode, they go to the Daily Bugle, and Butcher and Soldier Boy and Maeve is like, get in the safe. So they all just go in the safe, and then they all go to Vought Tower. Why not just have them go to Vought Tower directly? You could have saved time, and you didn't need that stupid scene. You know, I'm going to compare this season to my favorite show ever, Arcane League of Legends, because that show is a political story. It also has good people and bad people, but everyone is given depth and nuance, and they're complex characters that you might not always get behind, but you always understand where they're coming from. The politics reflect how difficult life can be, and it's never pandering, it never screams at you or throws the message in your face, and the story and characters always come first. And that is why it's such a brilliant, emotional, thought-provoking, incredible, perfect show. Masterpiece. And then you get this show where they put the politics ahead of the story and characters. Where they don't handle anyone with any bit of depth or nuance. Where nothing has consequences. And everything just gets butchered, pun intended. And the differences are night and day. And I just wish Arcane got a fraction of the attention this season got. Because, man, this was really bad. Like, it's just one that I don't understand how people love it. I just don't get it. It's all subjective, I get it, but I just can't see the other point of view here. It's just a show that, it's a season that ruined the show for me. I'm done with The Boys. I'm not going to watch season 4 or season 5. It's just going to go on and on. It's going to be building to the same stuff. It's going to be the same repetitive garbage, and I just have no interest in it. Like, nothing happens this season. It's completely inconsequential. No characters change. The story doesn't evolve. It's just more of the same. The characters are written terribly. The more questions are misguided. The show puts the politics first. There's no depth. There's no nuance. It's just blood and sex. And it's just a terrible, atrocious season of television. Despite the things I did like about it, like episode 4 was great, and there are moments that I liked, but by the end, the show just did nothing with those moments and instead ruined everything I once enjoyed about it. I don't like Huey anymore as a character. I don't like Starlight anymore as a character. I'm not looking forward to seeing more of Donald Trump. I mean Homelander. I'm not looking forward to seeing more of William Butcher. I'm not looking forward to seeing any more Frenchie or Kimiko or MM or just anyone. I'm done. I don't care. I'm out. I'm giving this season of television a 1 out of 10. Okay, did you watch The Boys Season 3? You should have. After all, Saturday is for the boys. I just wanted to make that joke at least once. But anyways, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.